Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. All right. Hello, hello. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the Five Talents Podcast, and I'm super excited. We have an amazing guest today, Mr. Dugan Kelley. Dugan, thanks for joining, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Abel. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, Dugan's an amazing syndication attorney, among other things. But for those that don't know him or in his world, let me at least give a little bit of your background so everyone knows that they should be grabbing a pen and a piece of paper to take some notes if you're eager in learning more. So Mr. Dugan Kelley, you co-founded Kelley Clarke PC. You have a mission really to deliver big firm expertise and provide that same experience to the local community, somebody small like myself, which I definitely appreciate, man. And if you don't know really the services that they provide, I'll let him explain it, but he's got a couple offices, or Kelley Clarke has a couple, Texas and also California, and he's assisted clients in structuring real estate transactions in excess of $2 billion. And I don't know how old that number is, but I bet you it's growing every day. So
yeah, it's probably over 3 billion now.
I figured, man. So you do syndication, security services for clients throughout the United States, a lot of other things. But let me turn it over to you, man. Tell our listeners a little bit more about you, what you do, and how you help your clients. That'd be awesome.
Sure. Thanks, Abel. Yeah, so I've been practicing law for over 20 years. Like you said, we have offices in the greater Los Angeles area, a little town about 90 miles north of Los Angeles called Santa Barbara, California. And then our main office is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But most of our clients in the commercial real estate space are hunting and acquiring deals and raising equity in the hot multifamily markets or just commercial real estate markets around the country. So we are a full service boutique law firm with a national kind of footprint. So my personal practice is almost exclusively in the area of commercial real estate. So structuring deals, basically taking people from acceptance of their LOI all the way to the closing table, and then helping them structure their securities offerings. So when you're going to actually go and borrow money from a bank for a large commercial real estate transaction, you realize that you don't have enough coin in your own pocket, and you got to go raise that money from passive investors.
Yeah,
that's called a security, and we help people do that in a compliant way so that they can actually go out there, raise the money to help produce results for investors, as well as obtain that loan so that they can get the keys to the apartment building or the mobile home park or the self-storage facility or any other piece of commercial real estate. And that's what I do basically on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much. And for the insight right in the background. And then also you have married, 3 boys, active in the church, local community, that kind of thing too as well, right?
Yeah, that's more important than what we do between, Monday through Friday and sometimes Monday through Sunday. But the reality is, all of us have a why, right? We're either serving a larger mission or purpose or something. Certainly my family, my wife, my 3 boys, my extended family, those are significant drivers for me and my faith and my church. So absolutely, we're trying to be as intentional and as missional in the areas in which our offices are located. So we actually live, work, play in our local communities, and we're not just here kind of by happenstance. We believe we need to be intentional about what we do in our local communities.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was drawn to you, among other things. But that definitely resonates with me and a lot of I would say our network as well. And then you also serve a nonprofit that has a very important mission, especially what's going on right now, right?
Yeah,
on the board or something.
I sit on the board of a couple nonprofits. Most of them are faith-based organizations. One in particular is near and dear to my heart. It's called Treasured Vessels Foundation, and its mission and purpose is really to end sex trafficking around the country. And in particular, we provide shelters for victims of sex trafficking here in the Texas area. So I'm active on the board and raising money for that nonprofit and just trying to spread the love wherever we possibly can in order to help victims of sex trafficking.
Oh, so that's awesome. Yeah. At the end of the show, we'll definitely, definitely put in our show notes how people can reach out to you if anybody's interested in, might as well say it now since we're on the topic. Where does somebody reach out to you for, like, specifically if they wanted to donate to that cause?
Yeah, absolutely. You can feel free to drop me an email. Thankfully, my parents gave me a very unique name, so it's Dugan. You're going to be able to find Dugan, lawyer in Dallas or lawyer in Santa Barbara. But you can drop me an email at Dugan@Kelley Clarke. That's Kelley Clarke CLARKE.com, and I'd be happy to connect anybody that's interested in ending human sex trafficking with Treasured Vessels Foundation, or if you want to just bypass me and go directly to them and donate there, would love that. It is a nonprofit, so you will even get a tax deduction for anyone that donates. It's something that we can all be behind. Like,
it's a great cause. Yeah, absolutely.
Not political. There's no ties to it other than just our mission of ending something so horrific.
I think everyone can agree on that level, and absolutely one of those organizations that you want to support yourself and for communities, everywhere, right? So that's good, man. I wanted to highlight a couple of things just so people understand, you're not only an expert in your area, but, really a big mission behind you, and you serve in all different areas of the community, this, US and us. And so thank you very much for that, Dugan.
Thank you, Abel.
Yes, sir. Well, jumping into it. So the reason we have you on the show, you are a fantastic resource for syndicators, operators, people putting together opportunities, as Dugan said, securities. So not many of us have $10 million to go buy a 100-unit apartment complex. And so if you're like myself that wants to leverage real estate, you're trying to raise capital from private investors, bring them on board, they're part owner. But, if there's, a $3 million raise at a $50,000 minimum, we are going to have 50, 60 partners, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But when we get into this, there's absolutely no way we can have that many cooks in the kitchen. And so some people are passive. A good majority of the passive investors are limited partners. And so they don't have an active say in what happens. That's what Dugan's talking about, the security. So that's why I wanted him to jump on board. So maybe we can start, right there from a passive investor, a new limited partner. There's a PPM, there's a private placement memorandum, there's legal documents. What in the world is going on? Why is there SEC involved? Maybe just give us a broad stroke of what and why, and we're all ears, man. I'm going to shut my mouth for a minute.
All right. So when each of us bought our first home, right, I thankfully was blessed to save up enough money to use my money and my wife's money for a down payment on a small townhome way back when, 20 plus years ago, when we first bought a property out of law school. And we used our own money. But just imagine if I didn't have my own money. And just imagine that instead of me buying a townhome, I was looking to buy a 100-unit apartment building, or a 20-unit apartment building, or a 10-unit, or a 300-unit apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reality is that that potentially takes millions of dollars for the down payment. Mm-hmm. So instead of showing up to the closing table and giving the title company or your bank that down payment of your own money out of your own pocket, mm-hmm. What we're going to do in the area of buying and selling apartment buildings is we're going to go out and raise that down payment from other people's money. Mm-hmm. And that's called basically, that's called basically selling a security. And the selling of the security is just a fancy word for saying essentially you're not buying a piece of a real estate, you're buying a piece of a company that owns the apartment building. So we create a new company that everybody's going to own. The passive investors, like Abel said, those are people that are not going to be actively in control of that entity, but they're going to be purchasing a slice of that company that owns the apartment building. And what the law really says is because it's a company and you're buying a piece of a company, that's a security. That's different than if you just went out and bought the property in your own name. And that process of the selling of security is really done through what we call a private placement procedure, which is really another fancy word for a bunch of legal documents describing countless amounts of risk and the merits and all of these things that you as the passive investor need to consider before you decide whether it's a suitable investment for you to actually invest in.
The first time me and my wife, we invested passively, and it was a good chunk of change, 50 grand, and we're trying to put that in there. And we looked at a PPM and realized it was 100 some odd pages. And we looked at each other and we're like, well, they need a commitment like tomorrow. They said they're getting full. Do we need to hire a lawyer to look over our documents? And we're like, well, I guess, no, we're going to move forward. Let's put a soft commit at least, and then look over the paperwork. But anyways, it was a daunting task. The first one that I went through. Absolutely.
It can be very intimidating, particularly people that have not gone to law school or graduate school. But they don't live in this world of all these weird words and the strange language that doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. But it's always important for you as the passive investor to understand essentially what you're buying, like what you're buying, what your rights are, what your obligations are, what happens in the event that maybe the people that are controlling the investment or the company that owns the real property can't pay the mortgage. What happens if all the tenants at the apartment building leave? What rights do you have to say, I'm not going to give you any more money? Mm-hmm. All of that should be in the operating agreement, which should be part of that PPM. If it's not, don't invest.
Don't do it.
Don't invest because you're investing in something that you don't know. You don't know how it's going to be run and what the expectations are, both from a giving them money and what the expectations for the future are going to be.
Yep. Right. So that private placement memorandum is really it's the legal document. It governs, how everything's going to operate. Right. And so maybe you can give us a few of these, components, right? What should I be prepared for when I see PPM, whether it's my first or second or 30th,
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
That's a great question because most PPMs have a very similar structure or similar components. They may not all say the same thing. They may not all be boilerplate, but you should expect to see something like these types of components. The first component you should expect to see are, what am I buying? Like, what is it that I'm actually investing in?
Yeah, the 100-unit apartment complex. This is the address. This is the place. This is what I'm buying.
Absolutely. Identity. Like, show me what is it that I'm buying. The second thing You want to know what are the risks associated with this investment, because
Yeah,
nothing is
bad
guaranteed.
market. My
Everything.
value add could not go, the right way. My constant, all the risk, right? Okay.
All of it. If you don't have that, that's not good. You want to know all the risks, because there are no guarantees. No matter somebody says there's a guarantee, don't invest, because don't trust them, because there are no guarantees. So you want to know the risks. The third thing that you want to see is, I want to see their business plan.
Sure.
Like, what are they actually going to do with my money, and how are they going to try to generate that return? What is the estimated returns that they're going to provide for me, and when will those returns actually start? All of those will be set forth in that business plan.
We're raising $3 million, $2 million goes towards a loan, $1 million goes to improving the property, and we're going to give you 16% of return, or whatever the percentages are, right? Okay,
that's right. Gotcha. And these are projections, right? So these are estimated. These are their best estimates. And then I want to see, okay, I'm interested. Now how do I invest? And you're going to see something like what's called a subscription agreement, which is really a very short kind of contract that says, here's essentially the money that you're giving, here's what's being sold to you, here are the representations that are being made by you and by the company. And usually with the subscription agreement, there's a questionnaire. It could be different from an entity, that if you're going to invest through an entity or an individual, but that's where the person putting the deal together is really trying to figure out often if this is what we call a suitable or a good potential investment for you as the investor. So while they've shown you all the risks, they've given you the information that they think is the best outlook or optimum outcome for implementing their business plan. And now they're asking you questions to figure out if you're the type of investor that this would be a good investment potentially for you to invest in, because some offerings, there are restrictions, meaning you have to be an accredited investor, or you have to have a certain liquidity or net worth in order to invest in that. So that questionnaire really helps kind of figure out whether this is a good opportunity for you to even if you're allowed to invest. And those are all the components. And then the very last one is that operating agreement. I got to see that operating agreement as a passive investor. No operating agreement, no moolah. I'm not investing, because after you give them your money, the only document, generally speaking, that will control your investment throughout the life cycle of the ownership of that apartment building is that company agreement. So that's very key. Those are the things that I look for. Yeah,
they better be there. Otherwise, it's not a good, it's not a sound syndication structure, and that would be careful, right? We're not talking about joint venture, another animal. We're not talking about partnerships between a few individuals. This is literally a syndication model where we just described there's a lot of us, and some of us are not doing any work. That's the limited partner passive investors. Okay, great.
That's right. Absolutely.
So in those documents, in the agreements, and that's, kind of looking through everything, what kind of weight do passive limited partners have? If I'm a $50,000 investor and I looked at this document and I go, I don't really like the way this says. I don't like this, language or wording. How often do you ever see teams change this PPM?
It's very seldom. So think of it like this. When you went and bought your house, right? And the lender gave you their loan docs, like Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae or even another community bank. You showed up at the closing table. It was already written out. All the loan documents, everything was written out. They gave you a pen and they said, here, please sign. And they explained, right? The title man or woman explained essentially what you're signing. It's very similar in that you, as the passive investor, really don't have a lot of leverage to force a syndicator or a sponsor. Those terms are often interchangeably. The person putting the deal together, you don't have the ability to force them to make customized, unique changes that only fit your particular situation. And the reason is simple, right? It's because there's 50 other or 60 or maybe more potential people just like yourself that are sitting down, and their situation may be slightly different from yours. And the bank wants to see one uniform set of rules for everyone. They don't want special rules for every potential passive investor. So you shouldn't have an expectation that there's going to be a lot of changes in the overall structure or the documents associated with it.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Dugan. And I tell, passive investors that are thinking about, a first deal and they're looking through this document, what I tell them is if you're thinking about investing passively, you should build some trust, establish a relationship, get to know your syndicator operator, ask them for previous PPMs or loan docs, get familiar in advance, because the last thing you want to be is like under pressure, making a decision, $50,000. I don't know about this next deal. There's a time limit. We got to go. You don't want to be in this time crunch in addition to the decision of having to look through the PPM your first time. Start doing it now. If you have a good indication, reach out to the team that you are thinking about investing with, and get to look at a PPM. Like, start to look at it now. Ask questions today. Figure this stuff out in advance. So when the next deal comes out 2 months from now, you're at least prepared with the legal side. Then you could just analyze the numbers, the investment, the actual business plan.
Great points. Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself, brother.
Yeah. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you've subscribed to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. Well, this has been amazing for the passive investors, right? And I think on our network, we probably have a lot of new general partners, active. They actually, before I say syndicators or operators, just people that want to go lead a deal themselves. And so maybe they're trying to determine, like, should I go a JV route or should I go a syndication? And there's a lot of business aspects to that. But maybe from an active individual standpoint, maybe describe, like, what maybe some gotchas. Hey, you see people say syndication, they really mean JV, or you see some people say, JV, and they really are talking about a syndication. Maybe give us some, insides and outs, just, cover the high level again from an active standpoint and what we should be thinking about before telling you, I want a syndication.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon, especially if you're looking at smaller acquisition or smaller purchase prices for assets, that you and 2 or 3 of your buddies could potentially do a joint venture. That just means that we're going to agree amongst ourselves that we're all going to participate in this deal, and we're all going to dump in our money essentially into a hat in order to get that equity necessary to get the loan. That's essentially what a joint venture between other individuals is. Now, notice we didn't bring in a bunch of passive investors, right? Yeah. It was just people it was like buddies getting together. We're all going to be active in this, running this business. We're all going to be active in owning and operating the apartment building or the hotel or the mobile home park, whatever you're interested in. with your friends or your joint venture partners.
Yep.
That's one thing, right? That's not a passive investment. That is what we call a capital contribution. You're essentially buying your equity associated with that particular opportunity, and you're not selling any particular securities, meaning you're not selling your own securities.
Okay.
Versus if you're somebody that's saying, hey, I really like this idea of syndication. What should I really be focused in on and up front? And I'm a big team believer, right? So syndication is a team sport. The only reason why you're having a team in the syndication world is because you don't either have your own money to buy the asset yourself, or you don't want to use your own money and draw down on all of the money that you have in order to do that. Or you might be missional, right? You might have a true heart to try to bring financial freedom to other people or help provide them a service, right? For many people, they don't have the ability to be active investors, meaning they have a job. Their job is going to the bank or Costco or Walmart or a law office or an accountant shop or any number of things, waiting tables. It doesn't matter what their job is. The fact is that's what they're focused on, is their job, not necessarily growing their money. So you, as the young operator, might have a mission to say, hey, I can provide a service by finding an asset that you will syndicate, and you will create a new entity, and that new entity will own that asset, and you're going to go out and raise that capital for people. So that's much different, right? Than using your own money with your buddies to now jointly own without passive investors. Anytime you have a passive investor, that's a much more like syndication model, where you actually have to go through that private placement process.
That's great. It's good insight, right? And in a JV, could I have, well, I kind of know the answer. I'm prepping you for this, right? Could I have 20 friends that all throw in a little bit of money and, do that?
I don't think so. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. I don't think you got 20 people that will really honestly can say they are actively involved in that. So the rule of thumb is this a security? The question is, if the person giving the money has an expectation that they're going to get a return on that money, it is likely a security. So in our joint venture analogy, we have 4 or 5 guys. They put their money all in a hat. That money is used to get the loan. There is no expectation. They go up or they go down depending on the profitability of the entity or the asset. But they get a return based upon their percentage of ownership of that. They can't have an expectation that they're passive. If they're passive, then it's a security and it's really not a JV.
If you're expecting not to do any work on the deal and put your money in, and you're one of 20 plus people, and it's not a syndication, that's where you need to be really worried. And then if you're putting the deal together and you're trying to say, well, I don't know if maybe I could just skip this whole security thing. I don't really want to do all of that work. And you have more than 4 or 5 people that are, some people that are not doing work, actively, materially participating, then you're in a bad spot too. You need to go syndication route. So thank you. And then, from a syndication side, like what should I be, maybe aware of? Give us, how do I ask the question, Dugan? Some things that you see people trip up in often, and you want to give some great advice to somebody, that's new to the syndication world. Like, man, I see people trip up here. Don't do X, Y, and Z. Do this instead.
So if you're going to syndicate, you really need to have like Abel says, you need to have an expectation that you're going to provide the roles associated with being a legitimate syndicator, a legitimate sponsor of that deal. You can't just say to yourself, I'm going to go raise money or whatever and get paid for it. It doesn't happen. That's not one, that's not right. 2, it's not compliant with current regs or whatever. So
Mhm.
if you're a young operator and you approach somebody and you say, hey man, I really want you to be my partner on this deal, and there's 2 or 3 people getting together in order to syndicate an asset, any one of those people has to be able to fulfill all of the roles associated essentially with the syndication.
Yep.
It can't just be, hey, I got this person on here because they're going to go raise capital and get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's not what the SEC wants, and that's not what you should want, and that's not what anybody that has the honest intention of trying to be a syndicator should want. So these are and oftentimes syndications require a lot of work. Like there's a lot of work that has to be done from everything
There's
from
a lot of work.
finding the deals to underwriting to due diligence to physical inspections to asset managing to putting up the earnest money and the at-risk capital to doing the loan application fee. All of these various things, hiring the professionals, dealing with the investors, raising the equity, raising the debt, interfacing with the lender. All of these various things happen in every single syndication. So you as the person that's just getting started need to really start to learn, right? Get either a coach or join a mentorship program or a mastermind, or start to listen to a bunch of podcasts. Try to consume as much information and material as possible, I would say, is step 1. And then step 2 is start to build out your team. So this is a team sport. You cannot do this by yourself. If you think you can do this by yourself, God bless you. Come meet me because I want to meet you. Because the reality is, after 20 plus years of practicing law, it's not easy. It's very challenging. And there's a reason why syndicators should get paid, because of all the effort and the services that they do. So you might you might see a passive investor who says, well, why are you getting this? Or why are we paying you that?
Acquisition fees. I have people ask me, hey, well, how do you justify this percentage fee going in and out? I'm like, there's a lot of work that went into it. So that's what I'm putting together.
Absolutely. There's hundreds, if not over 1,000 hours sometimes on a particular deal that the sponsors, the syndicators have done. And they haven't been paid for anything. Meaning, if the deal doesn't close, they don't get paid at all. All those hours, all those dollars, everything is lost. So sponsors and syndicators should get paid legitimately, compliantly. They should be able to get paid. But you really gotta amass that education. You gotta get your team going, and then be careful, but be intentional, right? Be careful, but be intentional to do it. Don't just say you're going to do it and get the information and not do anything with it. If you feel called into this type of industry or this type of enterprise, then do it, and do it with confidence that you're going to be able to do it. So often young operators or newer operators think, I can't do it because it's only for the rich people or the corporations or the institutions or the family offices. And the reality is, no, that's not how it should be. It should be for people that are just ordinary people, just like you, just like me. We want to be able to do this too. It's not just for rich people or corporations or rich families or whatever. Anybody should be able to syndicate a deal and do so effectively.
Man, preach. I love hearing it, Dugan. That's awesome. Absolutely. And, on those last, kind of final notes, right, is we're definitely called to be financial stewards on our side. And
Amen.
We love helping people, put their capital to work. And that's kind of 5T CRE. That's you preached it. Like 5 talents is from Matthew 25:14.
Amen.
Putting that money back to work. And I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant.
Amen.
Is what I'm looking for. And with all the other talents, but then the monetary part too, right?
That's right.
I kind of, deep down, I've known, and I kind of felt that like, having money or making money, it's like a tug that I shouldn't be rich or really wealthy. And then deep down, I know now it's like, oh, you know what? If I have more, I can do more with it. I can do more
Absolutely.
good. You can do more positive things. And so now I have a definitely a different paradigm, which is, man, I want to make as much as I possibly can for others and ourselves. And then we're going to go see what we can do. Some amazing things for it. So anyways.
And the scary thing is most people, I think, have a fear mindset, right? And I'm no different. So I think if we're prone, all of us deal with fear. Your fear might not be my fear, but that parable is an amazing story for people's lives, in that let's not let fear guide our decisions. Let's not bury our talent in the ground so that when the master or the bank or our investors come back to us and we just say here, but we didn't give it our all. It's so important for us to be, as you said, good stewards of the gifts and the blessings that we've gotten, so that we're not operating with a fear mindset, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dugan. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have probably a couple closings going on and a couple things in your world. So before we go, I think you dropped your email, but maybe one more time, what's your website to look into you personally, your company? I'm a new syndicator. I want to reach out to you. I'm a new passive investor. I have questions, etc. Well, where do I reach you?
So I'm easy to find on the internet. You can usually track down our website by plugging in my name, but our website is kelleyclarkelaw.com or kelleyclarke.com. Drop me an email at Dugan, Dugan, at Kelley, Kelley, Clarke, CLARKE.com. Would love to chat with any of your audience members. Happy to serve in any which way we can.
And you can help new operators syndicate a deal. So that part's check. But if I'm a new passive investor and I don't know what I'm reading, I can also hire your firm to look over my agreements, correct?
Absolutely. We do that for investors all the time. We take a look at deals. We tell them exactly what it is that they're reading, what their rights and obligations are, and then let them make the decision. But it's important, if you're a passive investor and you don't have the time, you don't understand the language, for you to have your own independent lawyer essentially be able to explain what it is that you're investing in, and what are the upsides as well as the downsides. What are those?
You can make a good educated decision and do that in advance. Don't do that like in a couple of days asking, hey, I gotta make a hard commit by tomorrow. Can you look at this? Probably not the best idea to call them at that point.
No.
Call them early. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about? Anything else you wanted to highlight before we go? Anything in general? Anything at all?
No, man, I'm so grateful for people like yourself that are out there spreading the word about syndication and about how you can help people grow their financial portfolio and create generational wealth and freedom from some of the shackles that people feel like, right? A lot of people feel like they're on the hamster wheel and they're never going to be able to get off it. So it's important for you, if you're listening to this for the very first time, you're like, what is this idea of syndication? You need to reach out to people like Abel to be able to connect and start talking, start that dialogue of gaining information about how you might be able to break kind of those shackles of finances and burdens that you thought that you would never be able to get rid of. Because if you look at the most wealthy in the country, these are people that are consistently, generationally, for hundreds of years have been investing in things inside this country. So don't just let it be for only one part of the population. This information and this knowledge should be for everybody.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Really sincerely appreciate your time, Dugan. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. If you do want to reach out, as Dugan said, our website is www.5tcre.com. And if you're interested in learning more, reach out to me, connect with me. Exactly as Dugan said, I love to talk to new potential investors that are looking to break the shackles, as he would say. I love it. So thank you very much, Dugan. Amazing. Thank you very much for your time, man.
See ya.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.